Thank you for joining us on Promising Me Unleashed with our friends Ken and LeVonda for a frank conversation about ways to honor your mate. So, hi, and thank you for joining us on Promising Me Unleashed. I am so excited today to have with us my friends, Kenneth and LeVonda Brown. Just to kind of give you a little backdrop on who they are, I have known them for several years, but I want to introduce you to them. LeVonda Brown is degreed in marriage and family therapy. They have been the coordinators of the marriage ministry at Refreshing Spring Church of God in Christ. And I'm really excited to have them on. Let me just first say, I've been married for 32 years. And we still need some therapy and some counseling. And it is wonderful to sit and talk and just have just very candid conversations about marriage. So I want to introduce you to them and have them just give us some information about themselves and how did they get to this point of being coordinators of the marriage ministry.
All right. Well, I'm Kenneth Brown. Again, I'm married to LeVonda. And we started our journey many years ago as married couples. We were very interested in making sure that our marriage was secure and firm. Right. We studied, and now we're in the age of information. There's so much information out there.
Yeah.
So fortunate enough to be around people who gave us a good example, number one, and then also take advantage of the information that's out there. A lot of good books, a lot of good things have been published about marriage. Right. And the hardest thing for us to do is, as people sometimes, is to read. Many of us do not read. So they say that best way to keep a secret, put it in a book.
Right.
People won't find it. But we were able to take advantage of a lot of information. And we found out that there were a lot of couples who were struggling silently, not doing anything, but were dealing with a lot of issues. And there was no one really there stepping in to give them any guidance. Mm-hmm. So we found it almost by accident, I guess. We got put in touch with people who needed help, and we just had an opportunity to minister to them. So LeVonda had the passion for it, and I'll let her talk about her background. But that's how we got started. We just realized that there was a real need for people to get information, and we had a little information that we could share, we share with them.
Right. Yeah. Nice.
And we both have the passion. He's just being nice about it. The thing is,
the fire's got to be on both sides.
Right. That's right. Initially, when we decided to do this, we both, at least I thought we both agreed to go to school together and let it be a nice learning experience. Well, you go first, and then, I may travel along with you later. Yeah. Right. You start seeing the things that I had to do, the papers I had to write and all that. But I tell you what, you go ahead and get the degree and I'll be your cheerleader.
That's right.
And then we'll do it together. Mm-hmm. No, that's not how we planned it. But that's what happened. But I will say he was the biggest supporter ever. I mean, he helped me, encouraged me in some of the classes that I had to take that I didn't realize I had to take, such as statistics. And you need that for when you're writing, studies and things. I am not a good person in math, but had he not helped me with that, I would not have done well at all. So there's a lot of things that we were still doing together, even though, yes, I was the one that got the degree, but he was a huge help. And as he said, it's true that it was almost God divine how couples, different ones here and there, will say some things and he'll place them in our path. And we would just pour in the knowledge of things that we learn with what God has given us as well as we're talking to them. Mm-hmm. So it was something that we enjoy. We really love doing it. And it's just a blessing. It really is.
And you know what? I have a ball, as you all know, when we sit and come together with other couples. And it is amazing how much you can learn from a couple that's been married. I think you all have been married, 37? 33 years. Yeah. And then couples who are just getting married. It is amazing how you can learn from both. Learn what to do and learn what not to do. But the learning experience is parallel. And so I have enjoyed coming together. I think we meet once a month. the first of the month. And it is probably the most enriching hour and 45 minutes or 2 hours that you can really have with other couples. And so, you know, the purpose of today is not just to talk about marriage, because a lot of the things that singles also are dealing with and can assist them in improving their relationships are kind of intertwined with the same things that married people are dealing with a few exceptions.
Right.
Okay. So, and we'll talk about that, because I think God had the perfect plan for marriage and purpose for marriage. But one of the questions that I want to ask you all, which comes up quite a bit, and it cracks me up, is why is it that single people say, oh, I don't want to talk to them because they're married, as if you were never single.
Right.
It's like, oh, they were never single. They've been married since birth. No, we have not. We were single. We had the same temptations. We had the same fears. We had the same apprehensions, just like you did.
Right.
We found that person that we believe God ordained for us, and we got married. But rest assured, those temptations and those things that you deal with as a single person, a married person has already gone through those things. You know, and to be very transparent, everybody didn't do it God's way.
That's right.
I didn't do it God's way. I thank God for his grace and his favor and mercy on my life to be in a marriage now of 32 years. And that took some growing. It took some tearing down and building back up as a result of not doing things the right way. And so it's just exciting. So I appreciate you all and the information that we're going to kind of share today that will really kind of help in relationships. And so one of the things that we talked about was honoring your spouse. And I believe some of those very same things apply to singles.
Exactly.
You know, within limits. So I like for you to just kind of share some of the key things that will be beneficial for people in terms of honoring their partners and their spouses.
Right. Okay. Well, one of the first things in honoring your spouse, as well as even if you're dating, is what we call in our marriage thing, we talked about touching each other. And we're not talking about something that's physical, nothing like that at all. It's more or less coming together, being able to pray together, praise God together, being able to just be in a public arena where you're just holding hands, nothing more than that. You're just holding hands. But if you can do those things and you're not having any type of agenda behind that, that's something that's in an honoring sense. Because I know sometimes when people are dating, they feel, oh, well, if I touch her, then, you know, we got to go to the next step or this next step. And there's nothing like that. All you want to do is just say, I respect you. And I honor you. And even in marriage, we still have to respect one another.
Right.
Not something where you just want to say, okay, if I'm touching you, then the next step is, oh, I know we can really go upstairs to the bedroom. No, that may not be the case. So that's the important thing we got to understand, that it's genuine touching of showing your affection and your respect to the person. That's an honoring. You're not trying to get something out of that. You just honoring them because you enjoy their company.
Yeah, and it's connecting, right? It's just
connecting.
Exactly. That's what that touching means to me. I'm connecting with you.
That's it.
I'm letting you know we on the same page today.
Right.
That's right. That's important.
Yes, it's very important.
And the next one is what a lot of people struggle with, not only married but single. Ability to listen.
Right.
We don't have that, you know, patience to sit down and listen to what someone's saying.
Right.
Rather, we hear the first part of it and then we assume and jump to conclusions and we shut the person down.
Exactly.
So the best way we can honor somebody is to take the time to listen to them.
Right.
Listen to their whole story.
Exactly.
Get the whole picture.
Yes.
And then after that, we talk about acknowledging what you've heard.
Right.
Okay, I heard what you're saying. Now let me make sure what I'm hearing is correct. Right. What you're saying is, and then we acknowledge back and forth. So that's the kind of thing that we try to get people to do.
Yeah, and can I say something on that too? Because I am the type of person, I like dialogue. You know, you jump in. It's like jump rope or double dutch with me. You know, you're talking, I'm talking. I'm like, I'm flying. I'm loving it. You know, I'm catching what you're saying. So I think, but you know, it's that back and forth, back and forth. But you may have a mate who likes the monologue first,
right?
You know, and so it is getting to learn their means of, you know, how they're most comfortable in the listening and talking setting. And you got to learn that because because I come from a family of 10. And so it's like, get in where you fit in, child. You better hurry up and say something quick. Because, you know, Marvin getting ready to say something, you know, but maybe in a smaller setting where it's maybe 2 children, let's say, they do have the turn, you know, where you can speak and then I can speak, you know. So a lot of it, when you talk about listening, I guess that what I found I'm learning is to allow them to get it all out. Allow them to finish their thought, you know, and that's something goodness knows that's a learned behavior.
It is.
So you know, we both have something in common because we're from Jersey.
Right.
In Jersey, we do have that quick dialogue. We talk back and forth. But I had to learn when I went to school. I went down to Atlanta, Georgia for school.
Oh wow.
And I had to deal with the Southern drawl, slowness of their speech. You ask for directions and they go on and they tell, well, see, what you want to do here is, and they never seem like they would get to the point.
Right.
So I had to work on my patience to stop and finish because it irritated me that it took them so long in one little thing. So again, that's a discipline you have to learn.
Right.
Your spouse may be that same way. You know, they may not be quick to give their thought, or they may not even be good at putting the words together, but you have to be patient enough to let them formulate their ideas, what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Right.
Because with that in the listening, sometimes, and I know I was guilty of it, a lot of times he's saying something, so I'm assuming he's going on this road. And I'm just going, I was like, okay, I already know what I'm going to say. And then when he's done and I'm responding, he's like, what are you talking about? Because again, I wasn't really listening to what he said. I already caught that little bit. And I said, okay, he's going down here. So when I catch him stop breathing, then I know it's time for me to chime in, but I'm all wrong. So key is we have to listen, ears, and listen, really listen to what they're saying. Even if you have to focus on their mouth or whatever it takes, you have to really, really listen and not assume that they're going to go down a certain road.
Right. That's true. That's true. That's true.
And the other thing to tag on to that is, I think the best way to honor someone, give them their your full attention.
Yes.
So you know, if somebody's talking about something and it's important to them, you need to make sure you have no distractions. You need to turn the TV off. Tell the kids, can y'all give us a minute? We need to discuss something, and give them your full attention. Because a lot of times we're distracted. We have so many things going on, and we're not really giving full attention.
Do you find that more common amongst women?
Oh, absolutely. Because they're multitaskers.
Listen, I'm not trying to put us out there, but the reality is that's the story of our lives. We're cooking. We got the kids nagging, you know, when our children were younger and sometimes older. So there are many distractions. So women have had to put on several hats at the same time. And the husband comes in from work. He wants your undivided attention, but you're already divided. You know, I can't split this pie anymore. So I'm giving you half of my ear. You better be glad for that piece. And I'm gonna answer part of what you said, not all of it, but you're gonna get some. But just, you know, but it is a challenge. And I think the big barrier that we have now is the cell phone.
Yes, absolutely.
That cell phone will have you scrolling through saying, And I know my husband said, you didn't hear a thing I said, did you?
That's right.
I might have caught the beginning or the tail end, but truthfully, that middle, I missed it. I missed it. Yeah.
But women have the issue with multitasking. The men have the issue with super focus. We're watching a game or something on TV. We are super focused.
Right.
And we're hearing something in the background, but our focus is what we're watching on TV.
Yeah, so, you know what? I wanted to say something too, because I know a while back we talked about waffles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eddie and waffles.
We talked about the compartmentalizing.
Right, right.
What was the other thing? The men compartmentalize.
Men are waffles and women are
And
spaghetti.
boxes, right.
So men thinks in boxes. And if you think about a waffle, they're blocks or boxes. So they compartmentalize, just what you were saying. It's basically what men do. They have to think of one thing and keep their focus, like Ken was talking about.
One thing.
Focus. And then if you're going on to something else, you got to let them know, okay, you can close that box. I'm ready to go to another subject or a topic. And women just basically spaghetti because we're emotionally attached to so much. Everything is connected with us. So that's why it's a spaghetti, one long strand, and it just keep going on and on. And we can talk and talk. And the next thing you know, we're talking about the children, then we talk.
Which subject?
And we going on and on. And the husband is like, where does all this come from? How did you get to this? But everything is connected with us. We're very much emotionally connected. Where, of course, men, they compartmentalize.
One box at a time. Right.
So the good thing is sometimes, and we do this, you don't have to do it exactly like this, but you can just say, okay, I'm done with that subject. You can close that box. Now I'm moving on to something else. Right. Then that gives them time to say, okay, I don't have to solve this anymore. I don't have to think on this anymore. Now let's go to hear what they have to say.
Refocus.
And it often probably will stop little spats from occurring too.
Right.
Exactly.
Because if you don't feel like you've been heard, it can shut everything down. There's no more conversation.
Right.
Off in another room somewhere. And you still haven't resolved the issue.
Right.
That box for him is still open.
Exactly.
And that's what frustrates a man a lot of times, is because they are solution driven. They're looking for a solution to the box.
Amen.
If the woman is moving from box to box and all over the page, he can never come up with a solution. So that's frustrating to him because he's looking for a solution. So a lot of times we have to say, okay, the woman is talking, maybe she needs to say, I'm not looking for a solution. I just want to express and vent and give my opinion. So don't look for a solution right now to me. So that gives the man a chance to say, okay, we're not focused on the solution here, but we're just trying to follow her through this maze of what she's talking about.
You know what drives me a little nuts in those situations, though? I'm gonna be honest. Why is it that when you come to the man with a problem and you kind of express how you're feeling about it, he plays the devil's advocate?
That's right.
Like because many times the woman doesn't necessarily want it solved. She just wants you to hear what she's saying.
Right.
But she comes expressing herself, and she has kind of like how she thinks it should go, but then he does this 180 and plays the devil's advocate. Like, he's not on my side. You know what I'm saying? So that becomes a problem for her, because she's like, wait a minute. First of all, I didn't ask for a solution.
Right.
I just asked for you to just come alongside me and let me know this thing is going to be okay. And I know for some women that in some way it incites them to do more, to want to, okay, oh, he done put a fire under me. I don't like it, but it causes them to kind of move and to act maybe in a way that's the right way to go. But for some, it closes them off.
Right.
Sure.
You know, so it's like, when do you all stop being the devil's advocate sometimes and just be nice and listen to your partner or spouse? I don't know. That just seems to be something that happens on occasion.
Right.
And it does. Exactly. So yeah, they do that. I think what they, instead of saying, what have you thought about this, or have you looked on this side, they just want to slide it in as being the devil's advocate.
Right.
But just say, how about looking on it at this side? Not, sometimes we're not, as we've already said, looking for a solution, but they just want to, you know, kind of hit us, punch us, and get us going. Yeah. But number 3 of honoring, we were talking about, is spending time together alone. And when we're talking about that, it's not necessarily, because sometimes people think, you know, oh, we got to be all cuddled up and things like that. And that's fine for couples, because even whether you're dating, it's fine to have some time alone. However, you know, it only goes to a certain extent. And it's something I'm just going to put in here that came to my mind. I know Ken has shared with our children. He said, never put yourself in a position where you're compromising your situation.
Wow.
You're dating. Don't put yourself in that position. So that's something that, as far as dating, you don't want to do, but it's okay to spend time with each other. Now, as a couple who's married, spending time with each other, it's okay to be in a position to do that. But what we're talking about, we say spending time alone, it's not just spending time alone in the bedroom and this, just that. We're talking about praying together, studying God's word together. We're talking about just talking about things together. What are our goals? What's our vision? Where are we going? Right. Where are we headed? You know, even though you may not know from 10 years to the next 10 years, but let's just break it all the way down. What are our plans? In January, we're starting a new year. What's our vision for this year? Yeah. Where do we plan to go? Where do you plan? What will you like to do, and vice versa? So we can map those things out. And that's what's important when you're spending that time alone together, to try and get that information and try to understand. So you will have a roadmap for that year, because if you don't, then you're just going every way, every which way. And then it's like a chicken with his head cut off and you have no direction. So it's always great to know what is the mission, what is the vision. You may have the huge one, but now let's break it down for this year. What is our mission for this year? What's our vision for this year? Yeah. And that's what's important.
Yeah, and you had us do that once.
Right.
We bought this nice little big board, and I think Clarence and I were the guinea pigs for that one.
Yeah.
But we actually still have that board. We still have that lovely, I don't know what it was, 24 by 18 board, where we wrote down the things that we wanted to see happen for us. And we've checked a few of those boxes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and he is my husband, I'm going to put him on Front Street, but he is an advocate for writing down what it is we want to do. And I get excited watching him check those boxes off. And we'll talk about it. Okay, I got that done, that, done that. Now he's one that leaves out with a list. Yeah. Even when he's going out to the store, I need to write this down because I want to remember what I'm supposed to get. But it does convey into relationship. Well, yeah, he want to remember.
That's right.
You need to make a note now.
Right.
That's right.
But I find it to be so important and so necessary. You know, something that I'm trying to get better at is to really write down what it is you want to do and check those things off as they happen, because it shows progress. And in relationship, I'd imagine it's the same thing. You want to show progress, you know. So, and I think it's good advice for singles, and even more so for singles, because if you start off in a relationship, then your marriage should go smooth. When two people can come together as single people and start combining some of their goals and aspirations, which is really, that should be what happens, right?
That's right. That's right.
That should be what happens.
Yeah.
So I find that it does work. It does work when you do it. But when you said something about spending time alone together, you know, one of the things that is a concern, you know, especially now during this COVID period, I think it's more important now more than ever that people are spending that alone time together. Because you're hearing of, you know, people getting divorced, people separating as a result of what is happening. It's like that added pressure. All they needed was a pandemic to come and really disrupt what could have already been happening in some way. You know, you can't blame it all on the pandemic, but it didn't help any for a lot of people. And so it's important, I think, for people to still find the value in spending time alone with each other, doing a check and balance of how are you really doing?
Yes.
You know, because we keep going, you know, I know women, we just kind of keep going. But there are things that are happening on the inside of us that we may not express. We may not express some of our fears and some of our concerns, you know, as widely as people think women do. Some of us aren't all out there with everything that bothers us. Some of us hold it in and retain it. But I think these times, and I don't know whether you've run into any experiences or people who are struggling during this time period, and what kind of advice might you lend to them, especially during this time?
No, you answer that.
Here they go again. See, this is what we put up with in class.
Well, there have been some times of a few couples where we come in contact with where they, yes, just as you're saying, with the pandemic, because they're seeing them day in and day out all the time, and they're working from home and things like that. What is it that you need to do? Well, even though you're in a home, you still can get yourself out of that situation to make it more exciting. Case in point, we can tell them, what were you doing when you were dating? I mean, what were some of the things that you could do? I mean, go walking in the park, whatever it is. I mean, some places maybe you can't go to a restaurant and things. And we always try to get them to be creative where they're not necessarily spending money, because a lot of times people feel I have to spend. And that's not the case. I mean, you can take a walk, you can go to the park, you can actually just sit on the sofa and just, like with Ken, bless his heart, sometimes there are certain movies. I love the romantic movies. That's that's just me. I'm just straight up rated G person. That's all it is. Right. And so the thing is with him, every so often, it's not often, but he'll endure and sit there with.
He'll watch Notebook with you. He'll watch Notebook.
But at the same time, we get to talk about it so that he can share his feelings. And then there are times with his action movies, I'll sit there and endure, but he'll know there are times my face goes, I'm covering it, I have the paper.
I'm asleep. I'm gonna just tell you the whole truth. I'm leaning, but I'm asleep. I'm gone. It's over.
But I know that's what gets him excited. So that's what we're talking about. And then there are times just simply spending time alone. We got the devotion book from Jerry Chapman with the 5 love languages. Nice. The author, but he has a devotion book out. And so now what we do, we take time. He'll read one and then we'll discuss it for that evening. And then the next night or the next day, whatever, I'll do the reading and then we just talk about it. So this again is spending time alone. You may not have 2 or 3 hours together, but you do have slices of time. And that's what's so important. And even in singles, you can do this. People thought we were crazy when we were dating. And this is the honest to God truth. We study God's word together. But I know that helped us. That kept us off our focus from not thinking other things, because you will think those things. You will have those feelings. And it's good to have those feelings because God created you to have those feelings. But it also should be in the proper place. So with that, we were able to take God's word to study that. We were able to do other things, maybe Sunday school lesson, whatever it was, to try and get our attention off of not totally focusing on the physical aspects of the intimacy or things like that, because we knew that wasn't something that God wanted us to do. So, but you have to take the effort. So that's the thing of spending time alone. You got to take an effort. And want to do it. That's the first and foremost. You have to want to do it. You said something that was very important. It wasn't, even though this pandemic we're going through, but there were people that had in the back of their mind, unfortunately, that they wanted to leave their spouse. You really, really, really want to do the right thing in the sense of wanting to be with your spouse. You got to make the decision, no matter what, I want to be with them. I'm going to do what it takes to be with them. And how am I going to do that? You got to pray and ask God, Lord, what is it I can do? What is it I can do to get her or get him to understand, yes, I really want to change and be with them and not walk out the door.
Right. And I don't know why people are afraid to ask God for help in these areas. People have different beliefs or whatever, but the more I learn and more I grow, the more I understand that God really is my source. For guidance. After I've maybe talked to someone else, after I may have vented with my sister or my brother or whomever, it's like, okay, God, I can tell you these intimate things that I can't tell anybody else. And so people, they keep looking for external things to try to help and fix things when he's saying, okay, but I'm right here. I understand what's going on with you, first of all, you will ever know. And here you're trying to blend your life with somebody else who I know better than they know themselves.
Right.
So why not just go to God? It's really simple to just
Right.
ask him to help me understand me first and then
Yeah.
help me to understand how I am supposed to live in a cohesive relationship with
Yeah.
this person that you've joined me to.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And you're right, you gotta want it.
Mhm.
You gotta want it. You gotta want it. And then you gotta learn each other's language.
Sure. Sure.
You do. I got
Absolutely.
to know what makes them tick and what doesn't make them tick.
Right.
And it's all about what you're willing to do, I guess. So,
Absolutely.
it works. That's what I want to tell people. It does work,
It does work.
but you got to work.
Right. Takes
Yeah,
work.
you got to
Exactly.
work. You got to work. Yeah.
Okay.
So, mhm,
The next, we're gonna move to the next one.
yeah.
The next one we talked about is
Number 4.
encouraging each other,
Mhm.
Oh.
being each other's cheerleader.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we discussed there is really the whole idea of creating a positive environment
Mhm.
is such that the person feels like they're appreciated
Right.
and that they have somebody's support. In a lot of cases, the best way you can honor someone is to be their cheerleader.
Mhm.
Talked about the fact that cheerleaders never get up and talk about your weaknesses.
Mhm.
Cheerleader will say, he's the best, he's the greatest, wah, rah, sis, bah. They never talk about how he missed that and he didn't do this and he failed to do that.
Mhm.
So as cheerleaders, we need to take that same attitude and accentuate the positives. Look for things that we can use to encourage somebody, to say, hey, you're awesome. I appreciate you. You're the greatest, even though they have flaws and we all have issues.
Right.
And as a cheerleader, you don't accentuate that, but you accentuate the positive.
Mhm. And you talked once about affirmation before criticism.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Can you expound on that? Because I
Yeah.
think we miss that because we go straight for the throat. If it's
Oh,
not
no.
good,
Yeah.
No. Because we call it the sandwich technique. Okay?
Mhm.
If I give you a piece of meat, you may not want that piece of meat.
Mhm.
But if I sandwich it between some really sweet bread,
Mhm.
it better, you'll be able to digest it better.
Mhm.
What we want to do is we want to be able to, when we have a word of criticism, we want to first begin with praise, put some bread and say, I really appreciate you. You do a great job. I really appreciate all that you do. And then you want to give them the meat.
Mhm.
But I feel like there's some things that you're not doing right, blah, blah, blah. And then after the meat, you want to sandwich it again with another piece of bread. But I know that you're awesome. You're incredible. And so you're sandwiching that criticism within praise. And I think that helps people to be able to, number one, accept what's being said. And number two, not put up their wall of defense as soon as you start criticizing.
Right.
So even, not only with marriage couples, but singles on the job, I've learned that to be very effective. If you want to get criticism, make sure that you sandwich it and think, come up with something you can put around it so that the person can accept it.
Right.
You kind of wrap it with some love, huh?
With some love.
Right.
That's it. That's
Wrap
it.
this thing with some love. And it's true.
Be sincere.
Yeah.
Be sincere.
That's the key.
A lot of times people, they hear what you're saying, but they know you're being phony.
Mhm.
You don't mean it, but you want to say something that you really mean. Make it sincere, so
Right.
then they'll accept it.
Mhm.
And again, that's the key. So sandwich your criticism with praise. People will accept it better.
Right. That's true. That's true. That's true.
And again, it's all about the presentation.
Oh,
Yeah. If you say you want to have
90% of it right there.
exactly
Right.
it's presentation.
Yeah.
So
100%. That's good. That's good. All right. Let's see where we going.
okay.
Number
go next?
5 we talked about was the unconditionally accept each other.
Mhm.
So you're just talking about unconditional love. That's the key there. You want to accept them for who they are.
Right.
Key is you can't change someone and you should not want to try and change them. God can do changing, but not you. Because when you're trying to change somebody and involve them into something that you think they should be and they really don't want to be, then you're going to get something that you really don't want.
Right.
So that's the key. You want to not try and think you can change people. God can change you and God can change them. But don't think you can change that person, because what happens is you probably going to lose that person the more you try to push them into something that they really don't want to do. So that's the main thing we're talking about when we say unconditional. unconditionally loving one another, unconditionally being there for one another, especially when you're married. If you made the decision that you're going to love each other, and you made the decision, I'm going to love this person no matter what, the first time you come up against an obstacle, or the first time you come up against something that's really maybe more than just a disagreement, but something that's heated, it should not be, I'm getting ready to walk out the door.
Right.
Because unconditionally, I made a decision, I'm going to unconditionally be with this person. So now let's work through this. And it may take a time where the two of you may not be discussing it right away, because you want to get into your own prayer closet and say, Lord, help me. How can I deal with this? How can I communicate to my spouse what's going on, or what has happened, or how it made me feel? You may have to get to that. But the point is, you don't want to start saying, all right, it's time for me to go. Because people are not cars. When I get tired of it, I just want to get another one and trade in. Right. And I'm gone. No, that's not what you want to do. You have to learn how to communicate. And I know the only way we know to do it is we have to go to God and ask him to help us to how we're going to communicate this so they'll accept it.
Right.
Also, they'll get to see the fact that, well, yeah, they do love me. They may not say it. May not say it at all, but the point is, you're letting them know, no matter what, I'm here for you, and I'm going to do all I can to help you. Because it may not be something that actually hurt the two of you in the marriage. It may be something that happened outside, where the person was maybe at work or something that happened. But the point is, it does affect your marriage. And then you say, okay, I ain't got to deal with this. I'm leaving. No, you don't want to do that. What you want to say is, I'm here for you. So what can we do together to become that oneness again?
You know, I'm glad that you said that, because I stop and I think about what people bring to relationships that cause them to respond the way they do. And I know in one of our sessions, we kind of talked about the transparency. I had made mention that I want to show up the same way all the time. You know what I mean? I don't want to show up one day like this and another day I'm over here and another. I want to show up. I want to be consistent in how I show up. But what impacts how I show up has a lot to do with my history.
Yes. Right.
And so, you know, when I start and I think about relationships, or even think about, you know, my own relationship, how I respond, sometimes cannot always be impacted by my history, because I've got to let history be what it is. You know what I mean? There are things you got to let go of. There are some good things you want to retain, but you know, as the person, what's driving you to respond the way you respond. And I think in relationships, don't wait till something big happens. You know, you're getting little glimpses of things you like and do not like on a lower scale. So why not learn how to practice on those things, so that by the time you get to a big issue or whatever, you you've learned your person, your partner, your spouse, they've kind of learned you, and you can kind of work together to resolve that bigger issue. A lot of times we ignore those little small things that are aggravating us.
Right.
So when the big thing comes, it's totally out there. You know, you have nothing left. You're not thoughtful. You know, you're just reacting and responsive negatively, because you haven't learned how to work on those little things, you know, that were coming up that you ignored. You say, oh, it'll be okay. You know, you just kind of push them under the rug, not knowing that that little molehill is becoming a mountain.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know, just my thought. And I know you guys have impressed upon us the need to be unconditional in how we're dealing with things. But I think our history has a lot to do with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we talked about the scripture that says, beware lest any root of bitterness spring up and many be defiled. And we talked about those hurts, those things that are buried down deep that we don't address. Time, they'll pop up somewhere else. And then we wonder, where did that come from? Because somebody's been harboring that for so long.
Right.
Sometimes it's important for us to deal with stuff and address stuff at that time, rather than to let it sit and burrow down in the ground, because sooner or later it's going to pop up.
Oh yeah.
We have to make sure that we address it when it happens.
Yeah. And then you act like I didn't know that. Well, you probably didn't. Because you know what? I think you show your best self when you're dating.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
That's true.
And listen, I need you to show your best self when you date now. Don't get me wrong. Listen, I need you to impress me. But I need that to continue.
Right.
I don't need you to start doing things and then all of a sudden we get married and it's like you fell off a cliff. What happened? I enjoyed flowers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then you stopped giving flowers.
Right.
You know, did you learn in that process of giving me flowers? Did you observe the joy? Did you observe the things that, you know, just the smell of, did you observe how I was responding to it? To know that, wow, that's something that he likes. You know, my husband likes to have dinner cooked.
Yeah.
Every night if he could.
Exactly.
You know, and we try to fulfill those things because we know those are the things that make them happy. But if you stop just all of a sudden, you're just not doing it anymore, then you haven't really taken the time to really learn those things that your mate enjoys. You know?
Right.
And then it becomes difficult to have those conversations, you know, because you start remembering like, well, what happened? That's not the same person I remember.
Right.
So that acceptance thing kind of weans and ways, and you've got to figure out how do we pull all that back together again, you know? So this is my observation, folks. And I'm saying that because Valentine's Day is coming up.
That's right.
So for some of us, that's a big event.
Right.
Some of us still like to have that chocolate, that flower, that whatever, you know. And you don't want to. What did you say? You said Mercedes.
I love the cards.
You love cards. See, simple. I like hardwood floor. I'm really different now. I don't care about flowers or candy. My husband knows that I'm like a two-time kind of gal. So listen, that's the kind of thing I like, you know, but he knows and he observes, he sees those things. So he's okay with my oddball requests. You know? But again, it comes with learning.
Right.
Now he can surprise me if he want to throw a flower in there, no problem. But he's learned what makes me tick.
Right.
And it really comes down to learning that lange, you know. It's important. You got to know your mate. But anyway, go ahead. I know there's more good stuff in here.
That's right. So our next one is being committed to one another. And it really kind of feeds into what we were talking about. Being able to deal with situations, especially conflicts that come up, and being willing to work through a conflict. A lot of times people get into conflicts and they throw their hands up and say, I'm done with it. They don't want to work through it. They don't want to fight to get through it. But again, as husband and wives especially, we need to learn to take the initiative and put in the effort to work through every conflict that comes up. And then there's some steps that you can use to get through the conflict. And we talked about those steps. One of them is always, and I always say, in order to live a godly life, okay, you can't live a godly life without God. Because you're living a Lee life. You don't want to live a Lee life. You want to live a godly life. So keep God in it. So pray. We need to pray about it.
Lee.
Yeah, it was Lee. You know what I'm saying? You don't want a Lee life. We got a lot of Lee lives out there.
Lee is lonely.
Lee is lonely. It's not very happy at all. No. So again, we want to make sure that we pray about it and we stay in prayer and ask God to help us, show us what we need to do. Because in every conflict, he says that every temptation, he gives us a way out. Well, every conflict, there is a way out. There's a way to resolve it. We just have to take the time and the effort to pray through it and ask God to give us that guidance and lead us. And the next one is we need to make sure that we're willing to apologize for any situation that comes up. Be willing to apologize, even if it's not our fault. Even if we're not at fault, we think we're not in error. Say, baby, I'm willing to, if it's me, if you feel like I've done something wrong, I apologize. So again, having that willingness to apologize, that kind of sets the atmosphere for everybody to come and say, look, okay, yeah, let's look at what's really, not point the fingers and not to judge each other, but to say, come on, let's work this out. Okay, so again, being willing, having that willingness of heart to come down and say, hey, if it's something I've done, I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay. The next one is to say, we talked about the constructive criticism. When you're dealing with those things, make sure you sandwich what you're saying. Because the worst thing you want to do is when you're in a conflict is to express your criticism and that person puts up their defenses and then you start going back and forth like a tennis match.
Right.
It balls in your court, man, we hitting back and forth. We're not really communicating. We're not resolving anything. All we're doing is taking shots at each other.
That's it.
So we want to make sure that we don't fall into that situation. So the sandwich really works because number one, it lets the person accept what's being said and lets them accept it without having their defenses up.
Right.
And I think you mentioned something about using the I instead of you.
Yes, right, exactly.
That is so critical. You know, some of this stuff it's learned. You know, in the textbook, you should use I instead of you. I mean, you know, it's written down how to do it, and it might sound a little corny at first, but I will tell you when you start using those words, saying I feel like
that's it.
It takes the defense out of it.
That's it.
It tears down that wall because the minute you go for that I'm telling you, it's on then.
Right. That's right.
I'm saying you better, you should have, you didn't.
You always, you never. I know.
That language right there, it changes the whole dynamic of the conversation, and you're no longer focused on the issue at hand. You become focused on the fact that you just said I was this. Well, did you consider that you were that too? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's back to that tennis ball effect, but you get rid of that when you just say, this is how I'm feeling. You know?
Exactly.
Because can't nobody argue with how you feel.
How you feel. Right. That's right.
I love that.
Yes.
That's right.
Have a conversation about how I feel, because this is how I feel. You know, these are my feelings.
Right.
You don't get a license to talk about how I feel.
That's right.
And that's in any relationship.
That's true. That's
you know, that's at the grocery store. You know what I mean? That's on the job.
Right.
I am sensing or I am feeling, you know.
Right.
And it does get rid of that bone of contention that you have when you are having a disagreement.
Right. So the other things we talked about using the I statements, but also avoiding those words. We talked about those words like always, never, so those things that kind of put somebody else on the, because again, there's always a discussion about that. There's always an argument about that, whether I did always, there was one time I did it. So you can't say, you know, so again, we try to
did it once.
That's I did do it once. So your argument is invalid because I did it one time. So we want to avoid those type of statements. The last thing we want to do is make sure we bring a solution to the table, not just talk over and over again about the problem.
Right.
Because in a conflict, you want to come up with a solution. You want to have a resolution. You don't want to keep rehashing it over and over and over again, never coming to a conclusion, a solution. So again, to get through that, you need to work on coming to the table with a solution. And if that means stepping back, thinking it through before you address the issue, then I think you need to do that. But come to the table with a solution. May not be always the right solution, but at least it opens the floor for discussion and gives you and your spouse an opportunity to figure out what should be the next step, how we can resolve. So I think those are some of the things that the tools we need in our toolbox when a conflict occurs. And then we talked about making sure that in the midst of the conflict, we don't close the other person's spirit. Because again, that's the thing that we talked about as being one of the worst things you can do in a situation is to close that other person down. And then all communication, all resolution is stopped. And again, there are certain things that we try to avoid so that we make sure that person's spirit is not hurt. And that their spirit is open to communication.
I kind of like what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that when you're having the discussion? It kind of leaves it open too, rather than say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Now, I do believe I'm old fashioned in many respects, believe it or not. And I do believe that sometimes the man needs to just say, this is what we're going to do. And I can respect that because I have that longevity with my husband. And I know that when he makes that kind of decision or statement, he's doing it for the betterment of the family. But when you leave it open where you can say, well, I thought about maybe we can do this as a, a means to resolve or whatever, that leaves it open too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, see, and then to tie on to that, when you do ask for that a person's opinion or what their suggestion is, the last thing you want to do is belittle them,
Right.
make fun of them, say that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. That closes a person's spirit.
Right.
Once you do that, you're not going to get any more input. They're going to feel like, okay, I'm not saying anything then, whatever. That's the typical line you hear from someone with a closed spirit.
Right.
There's something going on and they ask, what do you think? And you say, whatever. That means I don't want to address it. My spirit's closed. I don't even want to talk about it. You do whatever you want to do. I don't care.
Wow.
What happens when you close a person's spirit down? So there are a lot of things that are said and done that will cause that person's spirit to close. Again, we want to make sure that we don't make jokes over a person's opinion, because a lot of times we think humor takes the pressure off of us. But again, it can close someone's spirit down when you make jokes and make light of what they're saying. Trust issues are another thing that when we find out that the person is not trustworthy, that causes a person to close down, shut down. Okay. Again, being rude.
Wait, can we go back to that trust issue? Because we can't glaze over that one.
Okay.
And the reason why we can't glaze over that one, because a lot of people are getting involved in relationships with people that they know, even before we even think about getting married, that there is some issue of trust.
Right.
And they are showing you who they are, but you're getting in it for the sake of love.
That's right.
Instead of really thinking about, can I live with this? Is this solvable even before we even get married?
Right.
And how do I get the truth from this person or out of this person before I make this commitment?
Right. I think that's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes people do, as you were talking about, they see the signs. They still want to go ahead and dive into that relationship. It's not so much love. I know that's what you're saying. Sometimes it's alone. Alone. And so they're thinking, oh, I can deal with this. I can handle this. It's not that bad. Maybe they'll change over time and things like that, but I just don't want to be alone. And that's really something that's hard for especially women to accept. First of all, love yourself.
Yeah.
Be willing to be alone with yourself. And then once you do that and you begin to like yourself and love yourself, then you're not going to let someone come in your life,
that's right,
tear you down, or that's going to do these things like you're talking about with these trust issues. It's not going to be allowed, because I'm not going to let that happen to me. No, you're not going to tear me down like that. So I think what we got to look at is it being alone? I don't want to be alone. And people like now, ladies in their 30s, late 30s, and their 40s, oh, I want to get married. And this joker come across that may have some of the things on your list, but not everything on your list. And well, if I lower my standards, well, God doesn't want us to do that. And that's not something he's established. He wants you, as scripture tells us, write the vision and make it plain.
Right.
So if it's not plain of what you have envisioned that you want your husband to be, and he may have one item on your whole list. Oh, he has one of them.
20, he only meeting one of those demands. That's
right.
a problem.
See what I'm saying? But that's the thing. It's because I don't see anybody else coming along. That's the key. We can't settle. That's the key. We don't want to have to settle. We definitely want God's best. Just to slide in a testimony on this with Ken and I, when we were engaged, and one of the great evangelists came through and he was given a message, and he was talking about the testimony of this young man who was engaged to this lady that he believed to be his wife. But then God shared with him and told him, I will honor the person you selected. He said, but that's not my best.
Wow.
You want to marry her? That's fine. He said, I'll honor it. He said, but that's not my best. The guy, he said, he made the decision. He said, God, I want your best. I want your best. It was tearing him up, but he said, I want your best. So we heard that message. Neither one of us talked to each other about it, but I went home and I just prayed to God. I said, God, help me right now.
Yes.
I don't know if he's the one. I thought he was the one, but if he's not the one, Lord, you take these feelings I have for him away and show me who it should be.
Right.
And then he was telling me later, he prayed, he said, well, God, if it's not her, who is it? God told him, see, I said, well, if you don't think she's the one, then you tell me who is.
Right.
He said straight up, God said, well, who is it then? See, so God was talking to him directly, but what God did with me, he started showing me things around. He just showing me signs to let me know that he was the one for me. And see, that's the whole key. We got to be that sincere to want the best that God has for us, whomever that person may be. And when we do that, then we're doing more trust in God. So if you put your trust in God, then you will have a trust in the marriage. It's not to say your marriage is going to be perfect. And I don't want anybody to think that right now. No marriage is perfect.
No.
Not going to be bed of roses. You will have, as we're talking about already, the conflicts. You're going to go through some things. But when you make the decision initially that you're going to do it together, have that trust together, because quite frankly, with God, you can be extremely successful. But you know, there are people in the world that have good marriages as well. But we know you can have a great marriage when you're in God. But the whole key is you got to come together and be willing, first and foremost, to trust each other and move forward with it. So that's basically what I was saying.
And I love when you said that, asking for God's best.
Right.
You know, and I don't think people approach it that way. They want what they want. And there's nothing wrong with wanting what you want. Write the vision, you know, have a list of what you do want.
Right.
And be okay with that.
Right.
But even in your list, you still need to ask God, give me your best.
Right.
And I can so thank God now because I know he gave me his best. No, by no stretch of the imagination or either one of us perfect, my goodness. But we are growing together and we're learning together and we're beginning to finish each other's sentences, you know, and the thought that he had was the same thought that I had, or a conversation that I had with the children alone without him. He's had that very same conversation. I said, God, I know we married.
Right.
You know, because it's amazing how that happens. That doesn't just happen though.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
There's some time, there's some praying, there's some giving, there's some taking, there's a whole lot that happens in the middle. And there's the place where you are becoming more trusting of your mate. That grows over time. You know, and I know this to be true because there are things that I may not have been able to discuss with him 20 years ago that I can freely talk to him about now.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's time, it's a graduation. That's where that trust factor comes in, where you can become more, what's the term we want to use? You can become more, not transparent, vulnerable.
Right.
To that person.
Right.
Because you've had the time to build those levels of trust.
Right.
It doesn't happen in the first year of marriage. You know, I love him more today than I did that day. You know, I'm growing in love. People say, oh, I'm so in love. No, child. I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. You got to go through some fire first. You know, get ready for the fire because it's coming. You know, and if you can endure that heat, that testing of your marriage and your relationship and your love, then that trust comes, and then you feel firm in your relationship because you know you have God's best.
Right.
Man, that's good. That's good, Ken. That's good, LeVonda. I'm loving it. Ask for God's best, girls, guys. Ask for God's best. Let that be your first order of business when you're seeking relationship. Ask for God's best.
That's right.
I believe for the man, she's going to be ready, and for the woman, he's coming.
Right.
You know, so just do what you need to do to perfect yourself if you're not married yet. And even in your married relationship, for the man, she's going to be all that you need her to be.
Mhm.
For the woman, he's going to be all that you need for him to be.
Right.
Right.
Yep. I love it.
All right. Next one was you want to talk about the financials? We talked about honoring each other with our finances.
You know you start in trouble, right?
I know, but I just want to put it out there because
Come on, put them gloves on, because you know it's getting ready to get real up in here.
finances are one of the Achilles heel for a lot of marriages and a lot of relationships. We want to make sure that we deal with our finances in a way that honors our spouse.
Yes.
The analogy of, you hear people in churches when you go in, they say, we want you to honor God with your finances. Honor God. That means they want you to give a lot of money in offering. So we want to honor each other with our finances in such a way that I make sure that I handle my finances in a way that honors her.
Right.
No matter who handles it, because we even talked about the splitting up of the duties, and maybe the man may handle the finances and the woman doesn't matter who handles them. The key is you want to make sure that whoever's handling them is doing it in an honorable way, which honors the spouse or the husband or wife, whatever, and make sure that you do it in such a way that you're accountable to your spouse.
Right.
I should not have to sit here and worry about what she's doing with my finances.
Right.
She should not have to worry about what I'm doing with the finances.
Right.
When we were, married, they told us, put all your money in one pot. And we said, I got no problem doing that because I trusted her for handling the finances. It was interesting because when we got married, she would ask me how much money did I have before we got married. I'd say, well, I'm about, I got about maybe $200, maybe $300 in the bank. She said, 200 or 300? I said, yeah, somewhere in there, somewhere depending on when the check's clear, Right. With her, I asked her how much money. I got $179.32.
She's like, how do you know that exact figure? What's going on?
So I knew right off, this girl knew how to handle her money.
Yes.
I was one that I was okay as long as the phone wasn't ringing with people saying we didn't receive your payment.
Right.
That kind of thing. So we had to learn, divvy up that responsibility. And I told her, I said, I have no problem. I'm not threatened by her handling the finances because I know I can trust her to do the right thing.
Right.
I think that's important. So didn't matter who made the most money or who, again, a lot of people have issues about the man not making more money than the woman or whatever. I had no problem. I told him, make as much as you can.
Right.
As long as you put it in the pot, we good.
All of it.
All of it. That's it. So again, it's important that we understand that in our financial situation, we should be honorable to our spouses.
Right.
And again, I talked about accountability, making sure you're not intimidated because of she makes more money than I make and what I can't make any decisions because she makes all the money. No, in a marriage situation, everything should be common. You should have, and again, the whole idea is you want to make sure that you handle your finances and you make your decisions that honor your spouse. If I know my spouse has hair appointments every couple of weeks and I'm doing the finances and I don't put money in there for her to get her hair done, I'm not honoring her. If I know, I got to go to work and I need such things for my job, whatever, and that money's not put in the pot for me to do it, I'm not going to feel honored because I'm doing all this work and I can't even get my money.
Right.
Again, it's important that we honor each other with our finances. We have the accountability, and I let her know that the things I do, the money I make is for you. Okay. The same thing. The money she makes is for me. It's not my money, your money, but again, it's our money together. And I think that's the key.
Right.
So when you go through financial situations and there may be some struggles, if I have the confidence that she has my best interests and I have her best interests, then we can get through those financial struggles.
Right.
A lot of times, if I feel like, she doesn't have my best interests at heart, I'm going to take my money and put it over in this, special little, for my
pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So
that little church change.
That's it.
And that comes down to strengths
Right.
Exactly.
Who's the strength in the house to handle the finances?
Right.
Some women are stronger in that area and they handle the finances perfectly fine. Some men are stronger in that area.
Right.
They handle the finances perfectly fine. I think it is a good clue for a woman if she, and I'm just speaking of the woman, I can say this. If you see that the person that you're dating with can take good care of themselves,
that's right.
They're taking good care of themselves and their mama. I've said it.
Right.
I always say the mama. Yeah.
Somebody might call me on that, but that's the truth.
Right.
If you see a man who takes good care of himself and has a care for his mama,
Right.
you got something to work with.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right.
You know, you've got something to work with. Because if he honors her, I believe he's going to honor you. Just
Absolutely.
not in a competitive sort of way.
No.
Right.
But respect that the fact that that's a woman and you're respecting her. You're taking care of her too.
Right.
But you have to deal with who's stronger in that area, and then the issue of trust is also there.
Exactly.
Because finances make and break relationships.
That's
It's
right.
so easy. And you talk about stories. I remember this personal, but Clarence and I, when we first got married, and I moved here after a time. I didn't move here right away when we got married, but I came here, was not working. The very first week that I got here, someone stole our car. I mean, stole it, clear out of the parking lot. You know, and here we are, no car, newly married, you know, dealing with, okay, now we've got to kind of manage, you know, and that was a big little hiccup, if you will.
Right.
We're talking in the 80s, you know, that was a long time ago. But, you know, but we had to learn how to manage through that process. The one income, you know, the no car, you know, and that might seem like nothing now. But we had to learn how to work those things out. And work the finances and trust each other to do the right thing for each other. But again, you just have to be willing to do it, and you have to be willing to trust your mate.
Right.
Exactly.
You got to do it. That trust factor in the middle of that, taking care of those finances.
Right.
The big T. I don't know why T is not in finances. It needs to be stuck in there somewhere. So trust.
Right.
It will make it or break it. I think it should be next to the C. We got to do something with it. But anyway, go ahead. I think we got one more.
One more. And that's what we were talking about.
Right. And it's talking about encouraging and building up. So you can encourage the female or the spouse, the wife, with gifts. This is in honoring, and encouraging with gifts doesn't mean always purchasing things. The gift can be where you're praying for your wife. And you're just saying, Lord, I thank you for giving me such a precious gift. Help me and show me what it is I can do to even do more things of honoring her and to helping her. So you're doing that encouragement. And also there are times you can actually have him have your husband see you. You seeing your husband praying for you. That's what I want to say. And that's a good thing too, to see that, you know, that's an encouragement. And like to say,
gifts, right. Her gifts, right?
Right. Thank you.
Yes.
As he talking. But whole key is you want to encourage her, and then the gifts that she has,
right,
that God has given her, you praying for it, and Lord, what is it I can do to be better in that area of having to be, we go back to saying the cheerleader. What is it I can do to encourage her? Not to say, oh, well, why don't you do it this way? Oh, I think you should do it that way. No, just encourage her. You know, sweetheart, I see that you're doing X, Y, and Z, and you're doing so great in this area. You know, continue just to encourage her in the gifts that she has. As I said in the very, very beginning, how he was an encouragement to me when I was going through those times in school, as well as my internship. But he was a great encourager, I will say, and helped me get through it. I don't think I would have gotten through some of those things as well had it not been for Ken being there for me. And also just being, as I said before, the cheerleader and praying for me. Different times when I have exams or whatever, he's there. He's actually grabbed my hand and said, okay, before you take the exam, let's pray. And he's praying for me. So he's, like I said, encouraging and just asking God, what is it I can do for her? And then we're talking about in number 8 as well for the man, building him up. Women, we should want to build up our man.
Oh, yes.
Let me tell you, let's just be frank and clear. If you don't, somebody else will, and will do a good job at it to the point it may just turn their head.
Right.
Yes.
I don't want that. So you want to build them up. And of course, we're talking about being cheerleader, but it's more than that for a woman to do for a man, because the man's ego is very, very precious. It's very important. We're not talking about inflating their ego or anything like that, but you want to build him up. That's the way his makeup was made, to get that encouragement outside to come in. And that's the makeup. So you want to build him up. You want to show to him and tell him how much you appreciate him. You want to share with him how much you think he's just been the head of the household and the great things that he's done and will be doing, because as you're building him up, you can also be speaking life into him. You can be speaking some good things into him, where maybe he never thought of that, but now it's something that's going to start churning in his mind. So that's the whole key. You want to build him up and all, and that's another way of honoring. And you can do that even as singles on dates and whatever, but definitely when you're married, you want to build up your husband, and the husband, you want to definitely encourage your wife in her gifts, because a lot of times it is the husband that may be shown, the gifts is shown a lot more so than the woman. But when you see your wife has something special, it could be, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be special handling with children or special in cleaning, whatever it is, even the things that God had blessed you right now to do, the encouragement will help and illuminate and get the woman to go even more and further and stronger.
Yeah. And I like that, encouraging their aspirations.
That's right.
The things that even they're aspiring or thinking about doing, just making sure that you're a part of that and you're pushing them forward. And you're right. There's nothing like a confident man in their relationship. Same thing for the woman. When you're confident in your relationship, you can do anything. You're a mighty force to be reckoned with. You know what I'm saying? And I think when we consider the time that we've spent with our spouses, 32 years, 33 years, listen, that is something to be commended.
Right.
Say what you want. And I'm so glad that we're privileged to have people in our lives, who've been married longer than that. We're talking the 50 and the 60 years. I mean, we got a whole lot of work still yet to do to even get where they are, but just to see the beauty in the longevity of those relationships. First of all, God had to be in it.
Right.
Because I don't know how many of y'all walked to the end of the driveway and said, I'm out, I'm late. Or something told you to turn around, get yourself back in the house. You're not going nowhere, and neither are they, because they already told you they're not going nowhere. So you know who's really getting the best of the best.
That's right.
But it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And so with everything that's been said, and we know February is the love month, and that's why I thought this was so special and so important for us to have this discussion. What can couples do just to make this month, February 14th, even though we know it's just a day,
right?
These are things we want you to continue to do, throughout, but especially during this time period. What's some of the things that they can do to just kind of keep the romance and the love flowing?
I think the main thing that they need to do is spend the time to find something special. Don't do the normal, usual, what they always have done in the past. Take the time to sit down and think and figure out what they can do to make something special. I think that's a lot of times what's missing in a lot of relationships. They do the same thing over and over and over. She knows what to expect. He knows what to expect.
He's familiar.
Right, exactly. So spend the time. They say, whatever, it's the thought that counts. A lot of times people don't think, but if you think and spend the time to find something that makes it special, I think that will keep the romance, the passion, all those things that make the relationship exciting.
Right.
But a lot of times we don't put the effort in to find that special thing. And that special thing changes because we change.
Right.
what, like you said, may have worked years ago with you. Now the wood floors work for you. So, so everything changes. People change. And
that has changed, by the way. That has changed. We're off to something else.
So again, I think it's important that we take the time and put the effort in
right.
to find those things that are special.
Right.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And that's the whole key, what he was talking about, taking the time, putting the effort in, because you got to remember now, years ago, or even maybe it was a month ago, when you were romancing your mate to be married, or even if you're romancing now, those things work. But if you think about it, some of those things not working right now. Right. So you got to really take the time, as Ken was saying, the process of thinking, what is it? And you will get signals even without them giving it throughout the day, throughout your time while you're talking to them. You're going to get some signals of like, oh, okay, so that is what they like. Because it could be something very simple that they like and that you haven't done, or it could be something, I won't say complex, but something that will have you to have to do a little more work. I'm not saying it has to be a lot more money. That probably is not going to be the case. It's just something you would have to do more work. Because sometimes if we wouldn't just do, oh, well, let's see, this is Valentine's Day. Last time I gave him a card and I gave him this. Oh, okay, so I'll give him a card this time and maybe a shirt or something like that. But you're not really thinking through what's really going to give them something, that spark to say thank you. Not to say they won't be thankful for what you do, but if you take the time and think it through, you're going to see better results and greater results.
I love it. I love it. You all know I always enjoy talking to you. You always give us something new to kind of chew on and marinate, and brings up more questions. But this has been absolutely wonderful. I hope that you will come back again and talk to us some more about the things that we can do to enrich our relationships, both singles and married. And we thank you for joining the conversation on Promise in Me Unleashed.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.